Hello, everyone. I'm Rebecca Weber. This is your podcast, Better for America. And if you haven't done so, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another BFA episode. Now, today we have with us a voice who reminds us that comedy and laughing at ourselves and keeping perspective are such important parts, or should be important parts anyway, of the national dialogue. His name is Michael Loftus. He is a writer, a political commentator, and a comedian. He is also a source of truth. He gives us good candor and healing in an age when all three seem to be in short supply, and his screen credits are really too long to read, but they include writing and producing, including for the George Lopez Show, Charlie Sheen's Anger Management, and the upcoming Netflix series called The Crew. He is also a courageous source of comedy and factual grounding, reminding us that the center right is where most Americans actually are, not the far left. And he's also the host of The Loftus Party. And in that role, a celebrated unpacker of politics is what I like to call it, and social media and turbulent popular culture. So I want to welcome you, Michael Loftus, to our show. Thank you for being here with us today.
Well, thanks for having me. I sound incredible. I'm like, wow, I'm
Well,
looking
you
around, who
are.
is this guy?
You are, Michael. I do want to start, if I could, with some of the things that you've done, and how you came to see the world through a comedian's lens, because you've worked on a number of shows, you've run your own show, and obviously you've hit the sweet spot, especially when it comes to really helping people make sense of something that I think is crazy, and that's the world in which we live in today. But before speaking about specific issues, if you could please tell us, how did you get where you are at today? In other words, how did you come to do what you do? And looking at things through this humor lens, more diagonally, not straight on, but trying to make some fun of it all.
Well, I come from an age. I'm the youngest of five kids, so it was really either you're funny or you get beat up. So that was pretty much my two
Right.
options. And I always enjoyed, performing, and I enjoyed, helping out with the plays and all that, and just fell into stand up. And I'm like, wow, this is everything I've ever wanted. I get to write the jokes and perform the jokes, and I've got no one to blame but me. So it was very self-sufficient, and I could, if something went wrong, I could change it right away. There was just no middleman, and it's just so much fun, being in a club. You're telling jokes and people are just dying laughing. It's just a wonderful, wonderful way. It's one of those things where, like, I can't believe we get paid for this. It's
Isn't that
really a great
great?
feeling. Yeah.
So you've been like this your whole life, in a sense, in that you've found the humor in things and caught people's attention, it seems. I wonder if the idea of humor in the national dialogue is really important today, because we've kind of lost track how to laugh at ourselves, right? And I think it could be a real good educational tool. Do you agree with that? That if we bring things, to the surface, things that maybe we don't want to talk about, or things that people are either afraid to talk about or just hard to talk about, and instead we use humor to make us think differently or look differently at ourselves?
It's a wonderful coping mechanism, really. It's like, they say that comedy is tragedy plus time equals comedy. That's the recipe. So that's a wonderful thing, but, like, it is so they found out through studies that with if you present the same information, if you just hand somebody, here's a list of important things, they'll forget the vast majority of it. But if you do it in a funny way, they'll retain like 95% of that knowledge. So
Wow.
not only is it fun and funny, but your brain remembers things. So yeah, I try to do that with my grocery list. I try to I'm kidding, but that would be funny. Knock, knock, who's there? Two things of broccoli. But
Oh, that's great.
America's great at Americans have a great sense of humor. We're incredibly tough, incredibly smart people, and we can laugh at everything. I think the problem now with the culture in America is everything is so one-sided. It seems like there's only one side that the left gets to make fun of the right, and that's it. And if the right starts to make fun of the left, then they go, whoa, that's hate speech, buddy. You better watch it. And like, no, we're just pointing out the hypocrisy, and there's plenty of morons that need to be made fun of on the left.
You did a really entertaining show on, I think it was What Democrats Never Say. And it really drives home the idea that Democrats have become sort of so out of sync with America. But what I really loved, and I mean, I laughed and watched it over and over, was the part where you impersonate Donald Trump and many others because you're so good at that. I don't know how you learn that. But your humor is great. It's pointed, and I think sometimes we need that wake up call. Could you share a few of those things with us here? Are you able to do some
Well,
voices?
absolutely. We have on the show, we do the sketch comedy show, That Show Tonight. You can see it at thatshowtonight.com. We have a guy by the name of Sean Farish who does the best. He's our Trump guy, and he does the best. He's been invited to Mar-a-Lago. His Trump is so good. I'll do Joe Biden, and my Joe is really, it's a combination of like Walter Brennan and Jimmy Stewart. You got your Jimmy Stewart now. Now come on in here, right now. I'm gonna see the world, Mary. And then you put in a little Walter Brennan. You get confused, Joe. Come on, man. Come on. This is Putin's price hike, man. That's my Joe Biden. But occasionally Arnold Schwarzenegger, he'll come in there, he'll host the Oscars. We got great Oscar awards for the most woke, vaccinated, triple jabbed Oscars. It's going to be incredible. Watch out, Will Smith is slapping people. Everybody get down. So yeah, you never know who's going to show up at one of our shows.
I love it. Speaking of the Oscars, I can't have you on and not ask you, what did you make of that? And wasn't it so strange and ironic that we saw a display of just someone out of control, a man out of control? God forbid we call it, what do they call that? Masculine toxicity or whatever word they're coming up with, the left is coming up with today, and how bad it is. And then we see this really unusual, shocking display. At least for me, it was shocking. I guess nothing should shock us anymore. But I was, I thought it was staged because Chris Rock's response was quite remarkable in that he remained so composed.
Yeah,
I didn't know what your thoughts were.
Chris Rock is the hero in all of that, because I've been on stage a couple times where it never got physical, but I'm like,
Right,
it had the potential. But I'm like, a couple things, like, where was security? Where was
right.
security at the Oscars? And then Chris Rock, boy, time slows down. When you're the comedian and you're on stage and someone's coming at you, everything it's like watching a car crash, like everything goes slow. And for Chris Rock, he could have said so many things. I think he's got some real dirt on Will Smith, and he could have unloaded, but boy, he took the high road. He took the high road and kept the show going. And then here's the other thing, like Will Smith, you're up for best actor. You're up for best actor. You couldn't act like you were okay with the joke. You couldn't, like, that's the one time in your life you couldn't act.
That's a great point. I had never thought of it that way, but there you go. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Well,
Will has some problems at home that he needs to probably take care of. I don't think that
yeah.
marriage is probably the healthiest.
Yeah, it seems like it probably wouldn't be. I wonder why. I wonder why. But Michael, I am so intrigued just in how a few seconds you're able to point out sort of the ironies of our time, from Democrats not being willing to define what a woman is. My goodness. And Schumer doing nothing but damage on the Hill. And you know how to really get right down to it. So I love it. I love that you are able to get two ideas and you get to the point in such a short time and you
Well,
use humor
thank
to do
you.
it. Yeah, we love that.
It's
I do. Go ahead,
Well, we're
please.
having a lot of fun. We're having a lot of fun, and then with the media and mass media and legacy media and social media, it's all very one-sided. It's all very one. I think I'm an equal opportunity offender. I want both sides to be represented. And the wonderful thing about doing that show tonight, and the thing that we constantly get, people will come up to us afterwards and they'll say, "Thank you for doing this. Thank you for I think the majority of Americans, we can take jokes and we have common sense. We want to stand up for our belief system. But it's like we're being isolated and everyone's at home thinking, well, am I the only one that thinks that's strange? Am I the only
Right.
person? And then when you do a show like that show tonight, people watch it and they go, oh, okay, I'm not. And then there's this great collective, like almost like a sigh of relief. And that's what we need more of. Like as the idiots in Washington continue to go down this, like every path they go down is the worst path possible. And I'm going to make fun of them. I'm going to make fun of them.
That's
And so
right. I mean,
I
we
just
love
want people to
America.
join with.
Mhm. Yeah, and we love our free speech and we love that we can express our ideas. And that's what makes our nation so great. So keep doing what you do. And I love that you're pointing out, how people get to view you because that's our members. Boy, they're going to eat this stuff up. So we're going to make sure we put that up on the screen and in our bio as well. So we want, we certainly want people to tune in. I do want to ask you, if you will, to sort of step into the danger zone for a moment. What do you think about this moment in history? It is almost comical in a very worrisome way. I mean, we're hearing that schools are saying, "Does your child want to be an animal today? Do they want to be a furry?" I mean, for goodness sakes, this stuff like you almost can't make it up. Um, I just want to ask you, how do you see things today? Because again, going back to humor, that is a great way to look at it, but in all seriousness,
Yeah.
do things
Well,
look as bad to you as they do to me?
we did. Here's the wonderful news. It's very cut and dry now. There's
Mhm.
no way, like with this parental rights law now in Florida, where I
Yes.
don't know a sane, reasonable human being that thinks that a little kid should have any of this taught. Like that's the part. Like we're at a crossroads, and we need to amplify that message. Like no one wants that for their kid, and there's only, in my opinion, one reason why you would teach that to a child is if you had some really horrible, nefarious motives. So now is the time I want to get really loud, like and for Disney to come out and say what they were saying, and oh, we're going to have 50% of our characters now be gay or LBGT. I don't. Maybe they're going to have to go back through Snow White and make a couple new dwarves. They're going to have to make Gropey and Groomy, but I can make fun of it, but like we have to get very, very local and vocal, and parents need to be aware. This isn't the society now. It used to be like, oh, I'm going to vote for that president, and that will lead us. No, this is every level. This is your school board. This is the board of education. It's the dog catcher. It's the person in the elementary school vice principal. So Americans need to wake up, and that's the other great thing about this show. It's like you're not alone. We are not the weirdos here. We're the same people that just and shouldn't children be reading like the ABCs as
That's right.
opposed to what's in their underwear? It's very disturbing. So I want to make more jokes and point out just the absolute ridiculous nature of this, while on the other time encouraging people to go to school board meetings and getting rid of these teachers and getting rid of these horrible educators. Because I've got kids. Everyone has children. It's like that's off limits. Don't you? If you want to make Americans stand up, mess with the kids. Nobody messes with the kids. That'll get us fired up.
That'll get us fired up for sure. It certainly is. Our AMAC members, they've been so involved in this effort to speak up at their local school boards and get involved, identify critical race theory. Our website has got a ton of information, so people ought to go to the homepage of our website, look for the CRT banner, click on that. More information is there because people are saying, it's not really here, it doesn't exist, you're making it up. And the left is very good at creating messaging that is appealing to younger people. For example, they they labeled the good bill that DeSantis came out with in Florida, protecting children in kindergarten through third grade, as the "Don't Say Gay" bill, and it has nothing to do. It's the furthest thing from that. So we've got to be smarter and think of a way to counter those kinds of attacks. They use words, and they use words against us. And, most people aren't going online and looking up the bill and dissecting the bill. And so they're believing what they hear from mainstream media. But we're here to tell you. And one reason why we do this show is to remind people that you can't believe everything you hear. You've got to do your own work, and it takes time. But don't just believe it because you hear it on CNN.
Yes,
So
yes.
this is really good that you're able to point that out. Go ahead.
And they want to protect, they know the value. They know the
Yeah.
value in the messaging and the narrative. And that's why they don't want a
Mm.
show like that show tonight on the air. I've been in Hollywood for a long time, and I was pitching a show, kind of like a version of the Daily Show, but it was more, more center. And
Yeah.
time after time, these networks, Amazon, Netflix, other streaming services, other syndicatings, they're like, we love the show, we think it's very funny, we would make a lot of money, but we can't afford to look friendly to the right. We can't afford. They want to protect the power, because they know that politics is downstream from pop culture. If you normalize a behavior in pop culture, suddenly people will be okay with it. So when we did that show tonight, we had to get our own company that does computer servers, so they couldn't unplug us, and we had to create everything from the floor up. But that's what's they don't want to be made fun of publicly, because then it'll just highlight how horrible their ideas are. So it's
Well, I pray this day is things will turn, the tide will turn, because we know more than anyone, or as well as anyone, I should say, what it feels like to be censored. Amac.us is comprised of 2.4 million conservative, patriotic Americans that love this nation, that love their Second Amendment, that believe in free speech, that believe in God, some very basic fundamental values that really are the fabric of who America is. And, we recognize that most Americans do have a center right view of things. And so your show is so refreshing. That show tonight, I want people to understand how to get to it, because, one of the reasons why I was so happy to interview you is I love to have people who come on who say, hey, I've got great resources or something positive for you to tap into, instead of all of the negativity that we're surrounded by. So, how does it work? Is there a subscription?
this is the wonderful thing, and this I'm so happy that you had me on the show, because there's a ton of people out there who they're writing books. Oh, here's how the left is destroying America, here's what the liberals
Yeah,
are doing, and it's just gloom and doom. And people
right.
feel like, well, I'm it's if you know what they're doing, why don't you get up off your bahunkus and do something about it? So that's why. So thatshowtonight.com, we're creating
Check it
content, we're
out.
doing live shows, it's so much fun.
Good.
And what I'd like to do is, there's a promo code people can use, Amac. Just when they go to thatshowtonight.com and they subscribe and they all capital AMAC, they're going to save 20%. And I'd love, just for people who, you can laugh at this and you're doing something, and you're supporting people who share your values.
Well,
It's
thank you. I
we can
mean,
have a
this is
great time.
wonderful. It's a great member benefit. We are thrilled. We are honored that you want to pass on a savings to AMAC members. These are the greatest Americans here in America. They really are. Our members are just so wonderful. So they'll be a great audience. I appreciate that. I do want to ask you a couple more questions before I let you go. Can you tell us, to those listening, how did you really end up center right instead of playing to the far left, which is really where much of Hollywood entertainment and media are today? So how did you sort of stake out this middle road,
Well,
because it is unusual.
it's funny, like, one of the other things that I really enjoyed, besides doing comedy, like, I'm like an armchair historian. And if you read history and you're aware of history, socialism fails every time. Communism is, like, if you want piles of dead body, just try communism. It's horrible, the crimes.
Mhm.
And then you would see America changing. before your very eyes, and they're trying to make these things popular. But there was one moment in particular. I was at the Melrose Improv, and I was watching comedian after comedian get up and just say the worst things about George Bush too, the George W. And it was just awful. And there weren't even jokes or punchlines. So I'm like, okay, here we go. Here we go. So I go up on stage and I'm like, George Bush is the best president. I love this guy. And the audience was roaring. They just loved it. And I'm like, okay, so I can never go back. I can never go back. Even in West Hollywood, the Melrose Improv, there are still people who value freedom and freedom of speech and conservative values. And if you think about it, being people go out to Hollywood by themselves. It should be packed full of conservatives. Like this whole socialism, liberal, woke thing. It's like this crazy. It's almost like you've been hypnotized. Going out to Hollywood and trying to make your own way is the most conservative thing. You're not relying on anybody else. You're being totally self-sufficient, and through hard work and perseverance and by the sweat of your own two hands, you're going to make it or you're not going to make it. So
Right.
it seems like it's all just a giant illusion. I think Hollywood has more conservatives than people would freak out, and they will, because like with that show tonight, Jim Brewer's joining the cast. Christy Swanson, the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer, she's going to be doing shows. Another big Hollywood star, Nick Searcy's going to be doing shows. You're going to see. Get in on that show tonight now, because a year from now you'll be like, wow, look, they're going to be coming out of the woodwork. Mark my
Wow.
words.
That's great. Well, you have so much to talk about because it does seem that there is this cultural change that's being forced or pushed on Americans inside and outside, America. And it really tears away at the basic foundations of the country. Everything from boys competing with girls, 64 genders, but more and more genders every day, open borders, the whole idea of open borders is insane, but somehow we're meant to think that it's an old-fashioned idea that we should keep our borders wide open. And then we see kids getting confused. We see kids, adults actually are probably even more confused by the pace of this change in our culture. It's a lot for you to dig into. How do you stay ahead of the constant changes? And do you think that maybe some of these ideas will actually get reversed? In other words, people are someday going to look back and laugh at this time in history instead of look at it with all seriousness like so many people are today?
They will. I'm glad we always have to motivate our politicians to do the right thing. We always have to
Right.
motivate these politicians to make sure, America first. That's like we shoot that show tonight at the America First warehouse, and it's awesome, and that's our theme. But you have to take it seriously on one hand, and then you have to consistently mock. These are horrible ideas. And if you think about them for a moment, it makes zero sense. They're like, well, you're not allowed to go to work because COVID is out there and it's so dangerous. Meanwhile, people are coming over the southern border left and right. And you're like, well, you have to get a vax or you can't go to work.
Yeah, they're
Meanwhile, no
coughing,
one.
they're sneezing, they're sick with COVID, they're coming over with guns, they're coming over with drugs, but you, the law-abiding citizen, you've got to stay indoors and wear your mask.
It's completely and that's
You
why
know?
I'm so happy that that I think the first busload of illegal aliens just arrived in DC this afternoon. I'm all for that. Hey,
Yeah.
if you're gonna have people come, I want them to go to San Francisco. I want them in front of Nancy Pelosi's
Mm.
house, but she probably wouldn't notice because it's just another tent. I think there's a I think there's a lot of tents, but they could send them to Delaware, and they could park out in front of Joe's house and maybe get a free crack pipe to share with Hunter.
There you go, that too, right? This is real stuff. Oh my goodness, it's
Right?
insane. It is hard to wrap our minds around the insanity out there, but it's
Yes.
so wonderful that we can laugh about it. And such a joy to have you with us tonight. This is really wonderful. I think that you really brought us some good laughs. And this is probably one of the more entertaining interviews that we've done. So thank you for being with us today, being a
I
source of
thank
really
you.
fresh
I
thinking.
thank you so much for having me. This is an absolute blast. I love what you guys are doing. And for everybody that goes to subscribe, when they go to thatshowtonight.com, use that promo code AMAC, AMAC, all caps. You're going to save 20%. And then you can, oh, we're just going to laugh. We're going to
We're
laugh.
gonna laugh. You're gonna laugh. We're gonna laugh. It's funny. It's good. This is what we need more of. Thank you so much. And I wish you the best of luck in reshaping the comedy world, really, and all of your future pending projects. We're excited to learn more about them and to get folks to get over there and visit you. So thank you again. And for all of you listening out there, thank you so much for tuning in today. Don't forget to download that Amac News app if you haven't done so yet. I keep talking about it, but it's worth it. You can set up notifications or you can turn them off. The news app is free and you're going to get the kinds of news that you won't get in mainstream media, original content on amac.us or through the Amac News app, which you can download right on your phone. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share wherever you are on social media. Until next time, I'm Rebecca Weber. This is your podcast, Better for America. Thank you for being here. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you soon.
You're listening to the Better for America podcast, presented by Amac, the Association of Mature American Citizens. To learn more about Amac and all it has to offer, visit us at www.amac.us.